125 million girls and women in Africa were married before their 18th birthday.
The understanding of the fact that catch them young age, then they shall be yours forever, is one way or the other the jargons people use to make a case.
She was married off to a man in a country she doesn't know, into a community that she doesn't know. The man had other wives who abused her, maltreated her, and the man himself sexually abused and raped her.
This man thinks that once she's a wife, no matter her size, she must, behave as a wife.
In the course of my investigations, I identified poverty, socio-cultural and religious norms, as well as teenage pregnancy, insecurity as some of the driving forces behind forced and child marriage in the Ashanti region. Many parents are happy to marry off their children to escape poverty cycle. The National Population Council says it is concerned with incidents of child marriage driven by the above factors in the region. Mercy Adumabesia is the Ashanti Regional Director of National Population Council.
It concerns us in the sense that as these young girls marry early, you can imagine the number of children that girl is going to have. As we give birth more, we are increasing the population, and we know that population growth also has a lot of implications on the economy, on all of us. It affects the government pets, affects development, it affects almost everything. There are so many contributing factors that lead to child marriage. One of them, as I mentioned, teenage pregnancy. Families, if they want to lessen their economic burdens in terms of raising these young ones, they just trade them off in child marriage. And in situations where dowries are paid, if the father feels he can make something out of it, why not? He will definitely give the girl out as a way of getting some economic gains.
My investigations revealed at least 3 Muslim clergies are neck deep in the practice. They either married or tried to marry minors between 2018 and 2020 alone. This does not only give the fight against child and forced marriage a new twist, but a difficult one. Secretary of the Council of Zongo Chiefs, Alhaji Musa Shuabu Sharif, confirms.
I've also heard it. The community is talking about it. And then the Zongo leadership was also talking about it. The Zongo leadership has not been left out in this particular issue. There's a cleric here some time ago that wanted to marry a child that is below 18 years. So many hadiths, that is the saying of the Prophet. God is a leader. If he does that, he's going to set a bad precedent to people. My imam or my leader or my chief has done that, and that one can go. So the community also stood up against that. So we will not agree unless the girl reaches 18 years.
I visited one of the Muslim communities to speak to one of the clerics who tried to pick a minor as wife but was prevented by the community. Though he declined to allow me film the conversation, he told me his decision was influenced by religious belief. He pointed to some sunnah of the Holy Prophet to take the child as a wife. Asakwemampo municipality is noted for the issue of child marriage. Majority of the about 500,000 inhabitants are mostly Muslims. The assembly in 2020 tasked its social services subcommittee to address child marriage, but it has not been successful. Alhaji Alidu Seidu is the outgoing municipal chief executive.
The understanding of the fact that catch them young age, then they shall be yours forever, is one way or the other the jargons people use to make a case, which I don't think it is, because legally and morally, it doesn't even sound to go for this young girls who are supposed to be in school.
Despite always coming under pressure to give her daughter's hands in marriage, none of Alhaji Sharif's daughters is married. I asked him if Islamic religion, culture and tradition approve of child marriage.
Looking at the age of marriage in Islam, religion is not specific about the age of marriage in Islam as far as I'm concerned. But there is one of the Prophet's wife, Nana Aisha, who was married early. That is, I think at 7 years or 9 years or so. I cannot remember the age precisely. Prophet married her. But in the sense of Prophet, there are two things. There are his actions, and there are things that he also says.
Whilst in his house, Alhaji Shuabu received a call, so we have to continue the discussion on child and forced marriage whilst on board his vehicle. He told me how the leadership in the Zongo community have been inundated in recent times, the craze for people to take minors to the altar.
You are talking of a couple, then you are also talking of the family. All these are forces that comes into play when it comes to marriage. It's very, very difficult because they put in a lot of things before this thing came into our notice that somebody is going to take a woman or a child into marriage who is less than 18 years of age. When we go to meet them, the task is very, very huge because they don't want to even listen to anything. But we tell them the implications. We try to explain to them what will happen, because we have a law in the country that says you should marry at the age of 18. The man doesn't want to hear anything. He wants his wife. And you know, as the saying goes, love is blind. They don't know anything apart from that marriage.
He insists there's no point choosing marriage of young girls over the education in Zongo communities. The office of the regional chief imam has not been left out in the discussion over child marriage, as it persistently receives reports of child marriage. But the office says there's little it can do, since such marriages are contracted to imams privately at the blind side of the chief clergy. Ustaz Ahmed Seidu is the executive secretary at the office at the Ashanti regional chief imam.
A lot of such cases have befallen upon our office of the Ashanti Regional Chief Imam, of which I am the executive secretary. So we know more about that issue. And then we need some measure of education. The notion is that, people say if the law says at age 16, a girl can have sex with anybody, it's under the Ghana law. Then why should she marry at the age of 18? If at age 16, she's ripe for sexual intercourse. And when you do that, you don't fall before the law for to be reprimanded. But going into marriage at that particular age, they need to reprimand you. So this is the notion people are thinking about.
Dr. Ernest Osudapa, a senior law lecturer at KNUST, agrees there's conflict between the law that prohibits marriage at 16 but approves of consented sex at 16 plus.
Just speaking about the law, then one would say that yes, in terms of having sexual intercourse, in terms of having carnal knowledge, once you are more than 16 years and you have consented, the law does not have any problem. But then, if you want to marry, you want you to be 18 years, yes, is there a conflict between saying that you can only marry at 18 years, but you can have sex when you are 16 years plus, but you cannot marry? Does it make sense? Well, if you just wanted to compare it literally, then obviously one will see the difficulty that in terms of even pitching the morality of society around sex, are we a very serious people? why are we comfortable if people who are 17 years, for example, can have carnal knowledge, sexual intercourse, so long as they have consented? But then, if they want to marry, we say no. Wait until you are 18 years. Yeah, so from that perspective, then I appreciate that obviously you have that kind of a gap between the law, as it were. You have a gap.
Dr. Osudapa, who is also head of Commercial Law Department, KNUST, is proposing amendment of existing laws to make SHS a basic requirement for marriage in Ghana.
I will welcome any debate meant to culminate into passage of a law which will say that, yes, as a society, in accordance with the directive principles of state policy of the 1992 Constitution, we need to have a citizenry where the minimum level of education is what? Secondary school. And for that matter, we are not going to encourage and allow people to marry until they have completed secondary school. So that like completing secondary school education become part of the qualification or your eligibility to get married.
As a Kwemampo Municipal, under the leadership of the outgoing Alhaji Aleju Seidu, is one of the few assemblies that have shown intent to tackle child marriage at the local level. Whilst promising public sensitization campaigns in the area, he also promised scholarship for victims of child marriage rescued by police.
We will stage a strong campaign. Apart from the committee, we will travel the extra mile to also get in touch with DOFSU so that there will be quick delivery of message to them. If there is any issue of this nature within the entire municipality, wherever, the first point of call should be the assembly, then for onward transmission to DOFSU. And I always make sure that DOFSU takes the matter up to make sure that we bring this thing to an end. When these victims are rescued, we will see to it that they are sent back to school. So the assembly will institute a scholarship scheme to that effect. Once they get back to school, we find a way of paying their fees, taking care of them up to a certain period. I think that when this is done, it will go a long way to help.
According to UNICEF, over 90% of married girls are out of school. The outbreak of COVID-19 pandemic in 2020 is believed to have worsened the already precarious situation as schools were closed down for several months. The Ghana Education Service says it is concerned with the adolescent pregnancy cases in the region because it curtails victims' education. Hanan Ponsa is the Ashanti Regional Girl Child Education Coordinator.
That is a huge issue because if you look at the statistics that we presented, Ashanti region recorded a high rate of teenage pregnancy. And it's very alarming, and it's an issue that we have to deal with.
As part of this project, I gathered girls aged between 10 and 15 are the worst affected by the canker in the Ashanti region. One of such areas noted for adolescent pregnancies in the region is Adanse and Amansia areas. Majority of those pregnant adolescents in these areas attend antenatal at the Obuasi Government Hospital.
With the teenagers, we put them in a group from age 10 years to 19 years. And from our statistics, from our delivery books, we realized that in 2017, we had 162 mothers delivering. Then in 2018, we have 131. Unfortunately, in 2019, we have 163 reporting for delivery. It is not normal, but as for our figures, we have a mixed feeling. We have the happy side and the downside as well.
Generally, majority of them report to health facilities late with complications. This is common because pregnancy outside marriage is considered a taboo in many communities in the catchment of the hospital. Unsafe abortion and lack of knowledge on and inability to access contraceptives are also common among teenagers. Vidateria Asare, the in charge at the Obuasi Government Hospital, throws more light on this.
Some come with incomplete abortions. Some, when they are pregnant, they feel I don't belong to, maybe for reasons best known to them, they would want to abort it. Some start aborting their pregnancies at home and report to the hospital with complications. Then we resolve them, and all we want is a healthy woman back home.
It is a common knowledge that many of the girls here will be married off to the men who impregnated them to ensure they take care of them. These are girls whose traditional and religious practices have tried to protect them from premarital sex and childbearing. But one thing remained clear throughout my conversation with them at the clinic: they didn't get enough sexuality education. National Coordinator, NGOs in Child Rights, Bema Akwesia Mankwa, says many pregnant adolescents in Ghana have inadequate information on their sexual orientation.
It's affecting them because some of them do not have adequate information about the choices that they are supposed to make in terms of their sexual orientation, and that is a big challenge. So it's important we give those our kids, our children, adequate information about sexuality and reproductive health. Then they'll be able to make an informed decision.
Berima Amankwa is proposing the reintroduction of sex education, a topic that met public criticism, that focuses in part the promotion and use of contraceptives at the basic school level to save adolescent pregnancies.
It's very imperative that we begin to orient our children not only on contraceptives but generally on sexuality education.
As a radical step to prevent underage girls being married off, he wants birth certificate of brides to be used as evidence before such marriages are allowed.
One that I will recommend is that there should be an element of birth registration to let us know that the child is above 18 years. And even here in Ghana, sometimes people think that if you are above 18 years, you can enter into marriage. But they forgot that if you are above 18 years, you cannot really enter into what we call the custom marriage. Because if you are 21 years, that is when you can sign a contract. And marriage is a contract. So some of these things, the priests, the imams and other people need to begin to be educated on, so that they can also educate other people that will come to them.
I have come to the Komfanoche Teaching Hospital. The hospital psychiatric unit has introduced the Abuse Clinic, which provides psychosocial services to abused women. The clinic has multidisciplinary staff, which comprises human rights lawyers, police officers, psychologists, social welfare officer, among others. It has been providing support to forced marriage victims as well. I met Dr. Ruth Owusu-Antwi, head of the psychiatric unit.
There are a number of clients we see, and they will not usually come in complaining that it is because of a forced marriage, but they come in with various conditions that our job here is to find out why. And for most of these people, the underlying cause has been forced marriage.
According to Dr. Owusu-Antwi, some victims come in their worst forms, with some requiring several days of vigorous psychotherapy care.
Some have been very bad, and some come and they are in still a state of shock. They have been traumatized. They did not expect it. We have had people, one young lady was on admission for about 2 weeks without saying a word. She was mute. We did not get any information from her until about 2 weeks because she was still in a state of shock. The trauma was just too much for her to bear, and it took rigorous psychotherapy for her to even start sharing her story and tell us exactly the trauma she has gone through as a result of the forced marriage. And there are others who have been physically, emotionally, psychologically abused, and so have come in depressed with anxiety disorders. Some come with substance use disorders.
Unfortunately, many victims make short of their visits to the clinic because they cannot afford. Mental health care is also not covered by health insurance. Dr. Ruth Osuanchi wants a special fund to be set up to cater for the needs of forced and child marriage victims.
Mental health currently is not covered by health insurance, so anybody who comes to the clinic first of all must pay out of their own pocket. And so if there is a fund somewhere that people will know that I don't need to take money from the partner in which I was forced into the marriage with before I can seek help, then it can be a walk-in facility. So if we can set up a fund, benevolent people can help us set up that fund that will just cater for them, and not just their first visit, but their continued psychotherapy, their continued follow-up, giving them trade, empowering them economically.
Though some work has been done, a lot more has to be done to win the fight against child and forced marriage in the Ashanti region. UNICEF has been at the forefront of the fight against child marriage. The organization is currently providing support to the government of Ghana by providing modeling interventions through over 100 metropolitan, municipal and district assemblies, strengthening state institutions to work effectively. Joyce Odame is Child Protection Officer at UNICEF.
Our target is that maybe from next year going, then we will keep on pushing the government to also provide a matching fund for the resources that we are providing. And so it is to pilot for them to see that this works, and then gradually get them to also invest some resources into what UNICEF is providing.
That notwithstanding, UNICEF warns Ghana risks missing out on the 2030 target of eliminating child marriage. Joyce Odame again.
Once a family is hard up financially, the first target within the family is the girl. The girl is vulnerable, is the first target that people will give up when they are hard up. So it is 1 month less to feed if you give your child to marriage. Again, even the situation of COVID has also come to compound the situation for us because of the closure in schools. I'm sure not all the girls who came home went back to school. Where are these girls? We need to trace them and find out where they are to be able to get them back to school. And so we really need to accelerate our efforts. We are doing well, but looking at the rate and the pace at which we are going, and we may miss our target if we do not accelerate our efforts as a country.